acres in there and an apartment complex. And Peachtree City said, no.
Oh, really?
You can do
Oh,
13
wow, okay.
1 acre homes, not
Okay. And so
15
it's just
one quarter.
Ready to go? Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to get the microphone. I'd like to call the January 26th Planning Commission meeting to order. For everyone in attendance who are citizens of the United States, please stand and join me in pledging the allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Want to welcome everyone in attendance this evening. We have several members of Peachtree City's finest, our fire department, EMS, as well as our city engineers. Also, we have city manager and member of council. So thank you for being here this evening, and of course all of the people here in the public from the neighborhoods. We're going to go ahead and move right along. Staff, any announcements this evening?
Well, I'd like to give just a reminder for comments. For public comments, we do not have a public comment for this particular portion. Only the actual hearing, the public hearing, will have comments heard from the public, which is an item further at the bottom of the agenda. So today we'll not have any other comments.
Okay, I do appreciate that, and if everyone in attendance does understand what our director has said is that there will be no public comments this evening. We have received, and when we get into the actual item, we have received comments via email, via staff, and those have been read. So just want to let you know that if you did submit anything, those were received and have been read. So any presentations?
No, sir, not at this time.
Any agenda changes?
No, sir.
Okay, approval of minutes. So we have the minutes from the January 12th, 2026 Planning Commission.
So moved.
So we have a motion to accept as submitted?
Yes.
So we have a motion to submit to accept as submitted. In a second, any other comments or questions on that? Okay, that being said, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the January 12th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Minutes approved as submitted. Okay, old agenda items, nothing for that. Okay, so we're going to get right into the new agenda items. The first one is discussion to consider a text amendment to the parking ordinance, section 909, off-street automobile parking requirements, and I'll turn that over to staff.
Yes, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. So we have discussed previously some proposed amendments to the parking ordinance. So we have where golf cart parking is being considered to have revisions or creation, because it's not currently one at this time. So what we're seeing for section 909, we're looking into seeing how we can add those provisions for the off-street parking, while section 706 requires for there to be connectivity within our existing paths. So one of the points that were made were that if we are requiring for development to connect to those paths, we should also allow for there to be such parking for those carts. And so that's why the discussion is here for today. So we're here to discuss any potential revisions that you may have or considerations that you all may look to see moving forward. I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what's coming up for us. So golf cart parking, the Planning Commission spoke at the last meeting and suggested that we have a substitution to where if example would be given, if a business is required to have 20 parking spaces, they'll only be required to have 15 if they're going to have the 5 spaces be substituted with golf cart parking. Staff has suggested that we consider instructing where that location would be, just so it can be easily marked and identified. We identified anywhere it could be where near their handicap parking, it could be anywhere near the closest parking space of the building, or in that kind of direction as a suggestion. I will say I will spend a lot of time with my peer behind me, the engineers, as they will be very heavily used for that information. bike parking, a council member mentioned that he would like to see that we mimic that as well with bike parking, because we are promoting that. We are very big on, of course, golf carts, bikes, and walking. So with that being said, allowing for those three to be considered by adding the bike parking as well for that, and mimicking the same requirements for locations. Okay, third, we're looking at the calculation for street parking. So I gave a little bit of a summary in my staff report as to how we could look at this. I gave an example on medical, just as an example, because telehealth services is something that's really big today. So you're seeing where there may be an opportunity for lesser parking. This is just an example. Of course, we haven't done much studies on that. But we're seeing where currently today we have one parking space for every 250 square feet of gross floor area. We're thinking, as an example, you could require it to be one for every 300. That means that you're lessening maybe just a parking space here or there, but we can definitely go in more detail once we bring this back to you for adoption. Okay, and so lastly, it has been recommended that we look at the entire parking code, because that gives us a chance to see if we're up to standards for what we're seeing today in regards to trends for parking and land use. So just as a reminder, your city council initiated this January 5th. We're here today to discuss it and bringing it back to you on February 9th for potential recommendation over to council. And then that action for council, once they're ready to hear, will be March 19th. Sir Chairman, this concludes my report.
Great. Thank you very much. I know these are definitely some subjects that we've touched on in the past, both especially the golf cart, but also the bicycle parking and storage, as well as the just overall parking numbers at certain locations. Going to go ahead and open it up. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff based upon the presentation and the information that was provided? Commissioner?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. I guess, thank you. My only question is, when we started talking about this last week, at the previous meeting, parking, automobile parking, takes up a certain amount of spot. And we're talking about giving some of that up towards golf carts. I'm not sure where the bike parking comes in to add this to this ordinance. It seems like a totally different topic, because it doesn't take up any of the property that parking would be on.
Mm-hmm.
That would be on the sidewalk.
We've seen a increase in requests for bike parking over the years. I know that it probably hasn't happened since you've been on the commission, but I know that for Scott, Ken, and myself, at the very least, we've seen an increased request for that kind of a facilitation for public use of commercial spaces.
I guess my only question was, does it belong in the same ordinance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't have an
And I
answer.
think that's something that we can discuss. Again, I hate to put Dave on the spot, but that's one of the things that he and I will spend some time, as it comes to land development, of course, looking to see how that best suits the land. When you were speaking earlier, I thought each land will be different. It'd be site specific, right? Because some of the developments are already existing, and how can we make it so that we can enhance or play a part in what we're proposing today, and then it'll be probably a little easier for those that may have the ability to create new land. So with that said, I think we can bring that discussion back to you and let you know that we had considerations and play a part in what options we would have.
Thank you.
Of course.
Sure. Any other questions?
I have one question about size of the golf cart space. Are you proposing a 1-for-1, meaning just relabeling a car parking space for a golf cart space? Because the golf carts are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And some of the spaces in some of the shopping districts now that are striped, they don't fit.
So I will tell you, interesting you bring that up. I saw a compact car parked next to a golf cart, and the compact car was smaller than the golf cart. So that's an interesting point. We were thinking to reduce it based on the standard size, but you're right. I think a larger family has a larger golf cart. We wouldn't want to overhang from that parking slab. So we can definitely consider that to ensure at least the length. The width would be the same pretty much, but it's the length that changes.
I think we do have to consider the ADA compliance also with the
Right.
golf cart. I believe there's new ADA compliance issues with parking I don't know if that impacts bicycle type storage, but we really probably need to take a look at that because I know it was brought up in the past about the golf cart spots are going to have to widen
Okay.
a bit because of ADA compliance. That's something we'll need to take a look at.
One other suggestion is when we do the signage for the golf cart parking,
Mhm.
if we can put something in there that says no cars allowed at all, because I've seen folks park, you've got them lined up, and I've seen people pull up, get out of their car, go into a store
Okay.
that aren't from Peachtree City, and you're like, you can't do that.
Gotcha.
So if we can just clearly mark it that that's not a thing to do.
I will. Thank you.
Any other questions?
First world problem.
Yeah, I know, right?
I guess I do have a question of staff on the number of parking spots. And I know we touched on the telehealth. And I know Commissioner Halverson said, some of the properties that he's familiar with, especially some of the services and things like that, they're looking to cut back because people aren't coming out and parking there. But it wasn't very long ago. Well, maybe it was pre-COVID, so I guess it is a little while ago. But I know there was a lot of requests, or at least several requests coming in to expand parking because of especially medical facilities. I think we had a max of, I can't remember, is it 25% that we could go over the minimum or whatever the parking, I think it was 25%
Okay.
or right around there. So I'm looking at this going, I definitely think we need to have flexibility depending on the property and what the business is and what the usage will be. My only concern, and I guess that would be something to take a look at, if we've had those requests. If we haven't had those recently and we're seeing the opposite now of reduction, then I think it's definitely something we can take a look at. My concern, I guess, question in the comment, my concern would be that if we do give up those spots and say the property grows, the footprint grows because we don't have a spot or it's used for something else, it's not easily backtracked to go and put another parking spot in there.
Right.
So
Right. So there's a couple things going on there. So I will say that there are some uses that have requests for more parking spaces to be allowed for versus then it being stuck at the minimum, right? Having a little bit more flexibility, have more. So yes, that's the part on the fourth component where we're doing the full review of the actual development for parking. But then there's another component where existing parking may exist for a site, but then we may encourage for it to be areas that's not used at this time to be promoted for parking of golf carts. It could be so many different things that we just haven't explored yet to bring it back to you, but this is good conversation to allow for me to bring it back to our peers and the development team that we have here to just lay out these discussions, bring out ideas, and then go from there and bring it back to you for our consideration.
sure, absolutely. I
And
think the most important, like you said, is the flexibility to be able to
Yes.
take that full review and really see what's going on with that property.
There's a portion in my staff report that also says let's be mindful that this is possibly a trend. With that trends, you try to reverse and go back to. So we just have to be mindful of what we're creating to ensure that we're not making things, impossible to go back to.
Exactly. Okay. So any comments?
Yeah, I have just a couple of comments. So I do appreciate and like the idea that staff suggested about the, suggested and not mandatory location of golf parking spots. I think that's great to have in there. I think our former planning director used to call it rockstar parking, which I think that's kind of nice. I do agree with Commissioner Allen. I think that the bicycle parking and the reduction in spaces, or I guess the eviction spaces for certain properties, I think those should be separate.
Okay.
I'd love to see a survey of commercial properties done in terms of their usage and if they would. I don't know if they'd give us good data. We'd probably have to think about how that survey was designed, but I'd love to see something that could give us an indication of how much is actually being used and how much we really need in our commercial
Okay.
properties and spaces.
I'm trying to remember when we did the 54 West overlay update. And I should have that in front because I know I referred to it when I was looking at the LED lighting also. But do either of you and Commissioner Hamner recall where we kind of designated for bicycle parking? I mean, we weren't taking parking spots.
No.
It was separate
No.
areas that we're looking at that weren't part of the parking lot. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it wasn't
Yeah.
parking.
But we also weren't really directive in terms of being like it needs to be
True.
there.
Yeah.
like, at
It was
this
one of
specific
those,
spot.
when we get further along kind of with, looking at the UDO, looking at things that we were hoping down the road, that's when I think we were gonna kind of say, hey, this is for all locations in Peachtree City. We
Right.
recommend it's in this type of location with still some flexibility, but, trying to at least signify where we would like to see it, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and quite honestly, I'd love to see it be mandatory for commercial properties. I mean, we have one of the largest multi-use path systems in the country, so a lot of people use their bikes on it. The fact that we don't have it is quite surprising to me, at least. And then finally, I think the signage idea is a good one too for the golf cart parking. I'd love to see that as well. But a follow-up question I would have to that is, do we need to put in something that code enforcement would be able to enforce for that, or would it be something that already exists in the code?
So that is something that I've had a conversation with our senior code enforcement officer on that. And I can say that he and I have discussed various options of that. So that could be a part of our proposal as well to you for code enforcement
Yeah, I
actions.
think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing further.
Sure. Any other comments? No. Okay. I think overall it's a very good starting point. You've definitely hit on some of the subjects we've talked about numerous times. So looking forward to kind of see the refinement and kind of the final version as to what that looks like. But I think we have some good ideas, some good discussion on that. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, the next is a discussion to consider a text amendment to the lighting ordinance, section 731.2 of the land development ordinance, and turn it back to staff.
Yes, sir. So this is probably an easier one. So when it comes to land development and permits are coming our way, there's language that allows for light fixtures, and it gives the word only, because that means it's only allowing for those types that you're seeing there. So we're asking to add the LED option to that. I've given a sample of that in your packet to see what that language will look like per the code, and staff is prepared to bring it back to you unless you have any other amendments. We're proposing for that item to be brought back to you February 9th for your consideration and recommendation to council, and then for council on March 19th.
Okay, great. So again, we'll go ahead and start with any questions. Does any commissioner have any questions of staff on the lighting?
Just a clarification,
Absolutely.
on what type of properties would this be?
Thank you, sir. Yes, that will be for commercial and industrial. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes.
I would like you to amend one sentence.
Okay.
So in 731.2 light fixtures, the last sentence says the same type of lighting must be utilized for all fixtures and light sources on the site.
Okay.
That can be misleading. I
Okay.
think what you really want to say, or what the intended language is for all similar type of applications, that the light fixtures should be similar, because the language implies that everything on the site needs to be the same, and that's not. It's different applications. If you're doing a bollard versus a general lighting, you're not going to use the same type of light. So
Okay.
just to be more specific relative to typology versus site.
Got
It's
it.
too general.
Understood. Thank you.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Commissioner Hammer?
Yeah, so some of the older LED type lights have what's called a blue light glare associated with those, and they could be prevented by having some rules around the actual temperature
Yeah.
of the lights.
Right.
So we have something like that in there in order to prevent, to promote a certain quality of the LED lights.
So there's two different things. I'm going to jump on that.
Go
'Cause
for it.
You know, I'm a lighting nerd. So there's CRI, which is color rendering index. That's kind of 90 or above. And then there's temperature, which is what the commissioner's talking about. 5,000 Kelvin is this color, which is cold. And 2,300, 2,500, 3,000 is warm lights. That's like incandescent. So I think we can talk about what the intent is, maybe with the commissioners, is, you know, the way it was originally written is that you don't want all these different color temperatures all over your site because it just looks awful. So we just have to decide for commercial properties, it's better to be a cooler temperature. Typically for office, you're going to have more of a 5,000 color temperature for lighting. If you go for residential type quality, if it's like a nice restaurant, you're going to want something in the 3,000, right? So I don't think we want to kind of mandate just one color temperature. I think it would be depending upon the use typology. That would be my recommendation, and we can talk about how to do that. But I think that's what you were talking about.
That is.
That's a good point. And I think to add to that, and I don't know the easiest way to do it, but I would like to see something of the preferred lighting is LED.
You can do that with LED. Before you couldn't.
Yeah, I definitely think
right.
let's default to LED, you know, as the preferred, and then if they move away from there, there's options, but I think we need to move, I really think we need to move everyone to LED. I don't know what your thoughts are on that either.
Why?
I think power usage, I think longevity, as compared to certain ones. I mean, you're looking at sodium vapor or mercury vapor halides. I think it's just a better overall move to more environmental stewardness to go over to the LEDs also, just from a usage standpoint of disposal and things such as that. So I think you probably find most commercial properties pretty much going to LED. But I'd almost like to say, hey, this is preferred, not required, but just preferred.
I would agree with that language, preferred instead of required.
Yeah, it doesn't back them into a corner, but at least it moves them in the right direction, I think.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and colors, I'm not sure, in temperatures, I'm not sure the best way to handle that either. I mean, that's a good point.
You could have a similar language, like we have that last sentence that you suggested, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the
Right.
Yeah, similar typology of
Right.
light. That should have a similar temperature rating.
Yeah. Similar applications
Right.
Yeah.
would have similar lighting temperatures or like you said.
Right.
Okay.
So I have a
Yeah,
question.
kinda-
This may be more for you.
I may not be able to answer.
You did good earlier. It's my understanding, though, that the blue light glare and some of the temperature stuff is more associated with older LEDs. Is this something that, as technology's gotten better for these type of lights, it's basically just like more of a non-issue, or what are your thoughts on that, if you can answer it?
I can answer that one. So years ago, when they first started to do LEDs, and they were dimming them, it would stay the same color temperature. So to try and get an incandescent light that dimmed, they had to actually change the color of the light to change it from that color to more yellow when like a true incandescent light would dim. The original drivers couldn't do that properly, so it looked blue. So the new technology allows you to do that. At least my understanding is, because originally, and this was 2016, it was kind of new technology at that point. Since then, it's been exponentially better. So you're not going to find, it would be difficult for you to find an LED fixture now that was blue by accident.
Got it.
Because they're too cheap now to be able to make that mistake,
Makes sense.
in my opinion.
Yep.
I'm not an expert, but that's my opinion.
Definitely appreciate it.
Could I ask a question of Commissioner Halverson? There's a whole chart in the
Mhm.
ordinance that talks about maximum illumination levels
Correct.
at different points. Would LEDs, do you think we need to take a look at that I mean, would LEDs automatically increase? Is it gonna be difficult to maintain, the
The
light
foot
levels
candles?
that are?
No.
Okay,
No. So foot candles are based upon the type of fixture and the height and ratio of what it's spreading. So it's not just one bulb. It's, you can put like 14 of them in there. So don't worry about foot candles. We're
Got
just
it.
talking about color and typology.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Well, I definitely think, again, we have some good things to take and have that reviewed and incorporated.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely look forward to seeing that when it comes back. So,
Absolutely.
thank you, staff, for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a public hearing. The public hearing is the consideration of a text amendment to section 917 of the city's code of ordinances related to short-term rentals. If you give me a second, I will go ahead and give the public hearing procedures. Okay, when the public hearing is opened, members of the Planning Commission will become hearers. No action on their part is in order until the chairperson declares the hearing complete. The chairperson will allow each side equal opportunity to the floor. Individual members of the public will be given up to 5 minutes to state their case. First, city staff will present the request and provide an assessment of compliance with city code. Next, those supporting the issue will be heard, and that does include the applicant. Then those opposing the issue will be heard. Prior to closing the public hearing input portion of the meeting, city staff and the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions of either or both sides of the issue. When the chairperson is assured that input is complete, the public hearing shall be ended, and the Planning Commission may then debate the issue and render a decision. All speakers from the public are asked to follow these rules. 1, come to the microphone and state your name and neighborhood prior to making remarks. 2, keep remarks under 5 minutes, and please do not repeat others' comments. And 3, address all comments to the chairperson. Thank you. Okay. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to staff.
Thank you. Got it. Not working? There we go. All right. So the World Cup is planning to come to our home in Metro Atlanta, June 1st through July 31st. We're looking to see where there may be an influx of visitors in Fayette County, particularly being with our new stadium nearby. So we're looking to see where we would like to have an amendment added to the current ordinance that allows for, as you're seeing at the latter part, where it provides for the permit to basically be not required during that time. That allows for residents to have the ability to earn such fundings without having to report it to their income tax and so forth. So with that being said, City Council, wrong button, sorry. City Council initiated this August 21st. We're bringing it here tonight for your recommendation consideration. And then you'll see where council is proposed to hear it at their next council meeting on the 12th. The language is attached in your packet, and if you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay, great. Thank you. Since City Council and staff are basically the applicants, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor up to those supporting the issue. Do we have anyone supporting the issue? Please step forward. No? Okay, no one. Then those opposing the issue? Do we have anyone in opposition? Okay, if there's no one for or opposing, going to go ahead and do we have any questions to city staff?
I have 2 questions.
We'll have
Is that-
that after we close it, yeah. So no other questions? No questions. Okay. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the public comment period of the public hearing. Now I'm going to open it up to the commissioners to ask and debate the issue.
Okay. Just,
Mr. Gann?
just a couple of questions. I don't oppose this amendment, but I do have a question. if someone rents their home in a particular neighborhood, is there a limitation on how many people can be in that home that's rented? And how many cars are allowed to park around on the streets?
So are you speaking of the current code, or are you asking about what's the proposal?
Yeah,
So we're
both-
not-
It actually applies to both. the
Mm-hmm.
current-
So we're not proposing for there to be any restrictions on the change of parking and so forth. So with the code's current language, I do believe it doesn't specify the number of cars or people. It just gives the impression you cannot be without compliance or cause nuisance on their surrounding neighbors.
That was my concern, the nuisance.
So to that point, I think what you're trying to get at, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that this doesn't erase the regulations and guidelines on short-term rentals even during that period.
No.
So those regulations and guidelines, except for the permitting, are still in place.
Correct.
Okay.
So the
during
point,
this time frame.
yes, sir, and I appreciate that comment. So, this changes nothing within your short-term rental ordinance. The only thing it changes is that a permit will not be required. That means that if anyone wishes to have their homes rented during those timings shown, they're allowed to do that without having to go through the provisions of receiving the requirements of the permit. But then soon after that event ends with that date, it goes back to those restrictions and requirements.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Hamner.
Yeah, just to make sure I'm clear on this, the other parts associated though with the short-term rental outside of the application component, do those still apply during that time? Like, for example, we have things in terms of being like, we need to have a local contact person.
Mhm.
Like, will that still be required during that?
Everything still remains, every
Okay.
provision. The only thing that changes is the requirement for requiring a permit to be applied for during those times. That's it.
Got it.
So to Commissioner Hamner's point there, right now we have a notification requirement that you have to notify your neighbors.
Mhm.
It's not clear from the way this amendment is written that that requirement doesn't apply.
Where's the language? Hold on 1 second.
Section 917.
I want to see the language real quick, sorry. Yeah, so the way I read this, and the way our attorney wrote it, is that none of the short-term ordinance will be in effect during those 2 months.
So
So
none
they
of
will
the
not get
guidelines
they
and
will not need to get a
restrictions.
permit. They will not need to tell people that they're doing it. So for 2 months, the STR ordinance is not in effect. But if they want to do this permanently, if they want to become an STR, past the World Cup, they're going to have to come get a permit. So this is basically a way to promote the World Cup and people to do the Augusta rule where they can lease out their house for 14 days and not have to report it on their income tax. So that's what this whole program is. And the county, Fayette Forward, which is a new branch off of the Development Authority, is putting together a whole website. They've actually already got it, where you can register your house and put it onto their website, which has a master list of places to rent for the World Cup.
Chairman Rittenhour, I have a question
Yes.
for you.
Absolutely.
So, if your neighborhood was an HOA,
Mhm.
and the HOA rules stated that you cannot have a short-term rental, period,
Correct.
this
That
would not have anything to do with that.
right. The HOA would override it.
That's
Correct.
my point.
Yeah.
Okay.
HOA
So I
They
just-
could be more restrictive, but
Yeah,
they
the
cannot be
HOA
less
can be more
restrictive.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted the public to understand that this isn't a free-for-all for everybody.
No, it is not.
Question.
Absolutely.
How long does the normal process take, the permitting process?
So we typically see where applications come in and within 5 days, we're able to give the permit back out.
All right,
So it's a quick process.
Thank you. So that leads to my next question. If it's so quick, why remove the permitting process?
Because there's a restriction on how many houses can be STRs in
Are we-
Peachtree City.
Are we close to that already? I thought we weren't close to it.
But the whole idea was is the Fayette Ford approached us and council about just letting our ordinance cease for the 2 months, just to make it on easy people and easier on people, and to really entice people. Like, you know, you don't have to get a permit for these 2 months. You can rent it out for 14 days, just to try to get people into the county, spend dollars here.
Okay.
I understand the premise behind it, and I don't have an issue with the premise of opening it up. I guess my little bit of concern is that it suspends everything within 917. Is there an avenue to perhaps not do the full permit, but still have a list or registration of those homes, as well as remove the limits on having those, the number of short-term rentals? Because that's one of the big issues, is opening it up. So could we remove that limitation on the percentage of the number of homes in the city that are capable of being a short-term rental, number one? And number two, would we still be able to have a list? Because I think one of the big concerns was, you know, if you have these, of course, you know, they are businesses. You know, hence why some of the business license and things like that would also need to be considered. But there are provisions in there, especially when you come to, you know, the first responders, the EMS, the fire, of having some of that looked at and taken into consideration, as well as, I know, you know, the parking. You know, there was concerns about where people would park if they had groups of people in, and the trash and things like that. So if we're suspending everything in 917, is that the best way to handle it, or is there a better way to go in and take out those specific provisions that would still allow the city to watch over things, but open it up to allow more people to come in and utilize that functionality?
Create a temporary special permit for 2 months, right?
Something, yeah.
So
Or
that if
Just a registration.
yeah.
Just even a registration, so we know, you know, what properties, in case there is an issue, you know, from a police standpoint or code enforcement standpoint. And I know our ordinances do cover some of those other items already, but it would be a little bit more specific than that these properties are being used for this purpose.
Anything's possible.
Sure.
That's kind of my answer. It's it just depends on what you all want and what council's going to end up wanting.
Yeah.
Our recommendation is this, just because it's a 2 month period, and we want it to be as easy as possible on
Sure.
people after talking with the outside parties. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of what you all want to do.
I guess what I'm concerned about is, you know, we had several residents of different neighborhoods that don't have HOAs come to us when we were considering the short-term rental ordinance, and there were some significant issues that they dealt with in their communities. in regards to short-term rentals. And I think if we have absolutely no guidance, regulation, restrictions on short-term rentals for 2 months without any requirement that you show that you're going to be even attending the World Cup, I think we're just opening our doors back to that same kind of problem for 2 months in the summer.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, please.
If we have a registration process, then after the 2 months is up,
Right.
included in the registration process would be the rules. This is it, 2 months, you're done, no more. After that 2 months is up, anybody that violates it would have been given notice up front and could not claim ignorance.
But there may be homeowners who would only look to do this. I mean, I guess it's something similar when I used to live in Indianapolis with the Indianapolis 500, Brickyard 400.
Mhm.
People would rent their houses out and leave, rent them out for RVs and just usage. But that was the only time they would do that during those two races, basically. So that's why I'm thinking of this is something similar. It may be someone who would want to do it just for the World Cup, but has no propensity to do it as a short-term rental going forward.
Understood, I'm just
Yeah.
talking about those that would take advantage of it later.
Sure.
Correct.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the intention is great.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Um,
But is it the best to suspend all of 917 to
well, I'm not
do it?
even worried necessarily about that. What I'm concerned about is how do you undo it? In other words, if you start it and someone's like, great, I have a short-term rental. I've never had a short-term rental before. Look at all of this income. Well, I own another house. I'm just going to keep it going. And it's just open-ended because there's no registration. No one knows I have it. I'm not registered. I don't have a permit. And I'm going to keep going as long as I'm going to go until I get caught. So that was kind of the intentionality of if you just register it and then it expires after 2 months. And if you want a short-term rental and you like doing it, then you have to apply for a permit to be able to continue.
I guess my answer to that is they could do that now.
You have to go through code enforcement to
True,
fine them for operating without a permit.
they can, but this would definitely.
We have monitoring software.
Right, but you're now inviting people to do this.
How is this process going to be advertised so people know they have the benefit of doing it?
It'll all be probably Fayette Ford pushing it. They're already pushing it. Our public communications will probably send out something with the Augusta rule that you could do it for up to 14 days. The whole point is the 14 days,
Mhm.
not 2 months.
Gotcha.
The only thing you all discussing that I'm thinking about is we could potentially require them to register their house on the Fayette Ford website for rental because that's where all this is happening, and give us a copy. We could require them to come and give us a copy that they're doing this and make sure that it's on the Fayette Ford website.
Okay.
You just raised another question in my mind. It's a 2-week rental. The games are 2 months long. Can I rent my house for 2 weeks 8 times?
No,
4 times?
no.
So it's just one time.
You can rent your house for 14 days per calendar year and not report the income.
Okay, thank you.
But if you wanted to, during this 2-month period, you could rent it 4 times and then report the income.
You could.
So we're allowing unrestricted rentals potentially for 4 different times or more within that 2-month period without any regulation or restriction, is what it sounds like to me.
I still don't have an issue with it. I don't.
I like the idea of people coming to our community and enjoying our community during this period of time. I just think that throwing all the rules that we've put in place to preserve our communities and the nature of our community is not the right way to do it.
Commissioner Hammer, did you have a comment
I
or
was going
question?
to add as well is that, yes, we have the municipal rules in place, but the individuals that are doing short-term rentals through Airbnb, et cetera, have Airbnb rules to follow. So we're opening up rentals, short-term rentals in our neighborhoods and in our community that are actually going to have less rules applied to them in comparison to our traditional Airbnb locations. Again, we have some good rules, and obviously we spent a lot of time talking about the short-term rental. We implemented some good rules. Obviously, I didn't agree with every single one of them. I was the one no vote. But, again, I get concerned when, we're talking about not having a local person that could be contacted for this. There was the issue with the Smoke Rise house where it was sublet out when somebody was renting it and then they rented it to somebody else. And that was causing a huge issue. Again, things like Airbnb and those rules are supposed to prevent those type of things, but there's no rule whatsoever saying that, hey, you know, one person rents it and then they can rent it to somebody else. I don't know. It just feels like by saying there's no, we're going to suspend the short-term rentals, it's more than just saying, you know, we're not going to do the municipal rules on this. It's taking away all rules with it, because again, you know, even if we didn't have the municipal rules, there would still be Airbnb rules, et cetera, in some of the short-term rentals that we have right now. So it seems that there's just going to be, you know, we could have hypothetical situations in terms of what could go wrong with this, but you know, those could happen during this period.
So I think we have some concerns from the commission. So we have an option. We could try to put something together, draft it up to send it back to city council through staff. We have the option to, of course, recommend approval as submitted. We could also recommend, you know, denial as submitted and send it back and have them take a larger look at it. I'd like to get your thoughts.
Is staff is staff receptive to taking our comments back and maybe creating a different proposal that would at least put in place some guidelines or maintain our current guidelines for these types of rentals during this time period? Maybe just taking away the limitation of the number that's allowed just for this period of time?
Because we're on a tight timeline, I would ask, I would ask that you all make a motion tonight, whether it's negative or positive. But I would say add in your comments. Like if you want to talk right now about what your changes would be, like what you would want to stay or go, like we want some kind of proof, you know, permit, we want local contact, like we want these things to be in effect still. I would take those comments and then still make a motion so we can go to council quicker.
Are we able to pull up the full ordinance? Because I know we just have a section of it here.
I can get, yeah.
We got a couple.
Well, I guess, yes.
So, you know, just listening to all of the comments, I think if we were to stipulate that you at least register your activity, that would cover a whole lot of sins.
But register with who, I guess would be my follow-up
Well, that would have to
question.
figure that out. Yeah, yeah.
Because, you know, right now you have to get a permit from the city in order to operate one of these short-term rentals within our city limits. And there's a myriad of rules and regulations that apply to the operation of these types of rentals.
And some of those do fall within, I would say they may be probably covered, you know, with certain things of the city ordinances as they are, but some were very specific to short-term rentals, of course. Hence why we had this section added.
Sir Chairman, I will
Yes.
also add that this has already been advertised for council at this point, so I just want to add that
Okay.
it's ready for a recommendation for you.
Okay.
Under the short timeline that we have, I would add to Hans' point that we had to appoint a local point of contact. I think if we had them register with the city and they provided a local point of contact in case something went wrong, that we could move forward. That would be my recommendation,
Okay.
given such short notice to work with it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Any thoughts from the other commissioners on those? I definitely think at a minimum that's what we need. I absolutely agree. And again, I think we all understand the reason why this is coming out, you know, and definitely want to welcome everyone to Peachtree City. But as both Commissioner Chris and Commissioner Hamner said, we did spend a lot of time going back and forth between us and staff and city council to come up with a usable short-term rental. And it does seem that, we seem to be setting it all aside, just everything, because that may have been the easiest path, because it is difficult to go in and take certain sections out and maybe amend those, for this. Thoughts, comments? Commissioner Kriz, anything?
It's hard for me to, when we did do all that hard work, and we put in place what I think was, a good compromise after a lot of discussion, a significant amount of discussion, to suspend it for 2 months and allow the Wild West to come back, I think is wrong. I do think that the intention of it is good. I just think that the way that it's put together currently, I do not support it.
Any other thoughts, comments? Commissioner Hamner, I know we were all three of us involved in it very much. Any other thoughts on this?
I'm just gonna just second what Commissioner Chris just said.
Okay. I think, what I would have as a minimum for recommendation is they definitely have to be, registered in some way, shape, or form. If it does go through a county agency, then at minimum it has to come to us. But I do have concerns as to the rest of the requirements that we're, like I said, we're part of 917 when we developed this. And that's why I kind of asked to pull it up to see if there's any way we can go ahead and pick out pieces that we may be able to retain from a recommendation standpoint. My fear is if we don't come up with something, then there's a very good possibility that this may be recommended for denial. But we'll have to see which direction that would go. Do we want to go through and take a look? It's going to take a little bit of effort to go through and take a look at it, or are we to the point where it's all or nothing?
Well, I don't think it's all or nothing. I think the recommendations that we made here in this end is more than nothing. I agree that ideally we'd have more restrictions to this. Ideally it would almost completely mirror what you've already worked on, but we don't have that luxury right now. It seems to me like we're either a no, or we provide a yes with 2 or 3 additions.
Or we could say no because we're making a recommendation to city council, right?
Uh-huh.
So
It's just a recommendation,
we could
correct?
say no, but we could say if it were to be approved, we'd like to see X,
Yeah,
Y, or Z.
Absolutely.
That would be what
Yeah.
I would prefer.
And I think that's a good point. We are not, as the planning commission, the final say on this. We just make a recommendation to city council, and then city council will take that and use our input in how they see fit to go ahead and make their final determination and vote on that. So do we want to go ahead and make some recommendations?
I can make a motion.
Yeah.
I move to recommend denial, or is that the right word? Of the text amendment to section 917, the city's code of ordinances related to short-term rentals, with comments, right, that the planning commission recommends some sort of registration, guidelines or otherwise, in terms of what is required for local residents or property owners that would like to engage in this type of rental activity during this time frame. There should be some sort of registration and some sort of guidelines provided.
And a local point of contact.
And a local point of contact, yeah.
Do we want to see anything else with that? I think that's I don't want to say a good start, but I think that's, aside from going through and taking a look at everything, I think that's.
I think it's vague enough that they can kind of figure out what they want to do with it.
Sure, okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. So we.
Second the motion.
Okay, so if you could, I'm going to go ahead and restate it to make sure. So there's a motion to recommend denial of this ordinance change for the short-term rental, section 917, with comments, And those comments and recommendations are a registration, and we'll leave that up to council and staff to come up with that, as well as a local point of contact for that also. So I think those are two good, so we know at least the properties that are, as well as the point of contact in case something does happen, forbid that.
And additional guidelines for short-term
Yeah.
rental during that time
Yeah,
frame.
and any additional guidelines for short-term rental during that time. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor of denial of the text amendment to 917 of the city's code of ordinances related to recommendation of denial to the text amendment to section 917 of the city's codes of ordinances related to short-term rentals with the said contacts, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, recommendation for denial with comments. Thank you. Unfortunately, that was not quite as straightforward as we may have thought it was. So, but that's okay. That's okay. Workshop items. So now we have a concept plat, Bradshaw Estates, 201 Sumner Road. And as it was brought up at the beginning, workshop, there are no public comments during a workshop. We have received those comments, concerns, questions that have come in via email from the public. Those were passed on to the Planning Commission from staff, so we have those and we've read those over. This is a discussion between the Planning Commission, staff, our city services, as to the current proposed concept plat for Bradshaw Estates. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to staff.
All right, so I'm just going to try to give you a brief overview of how they're meeting zoning requirements and a brief explanation of the proposal, and then we'll turn it over, as we normally do, to the applicant to add anything, and then to you all for questions and comments. So the property is located, we're calling it 201 Sumner Road. That was really just a placeholder for us to file it. But it is located at the, Sumner Road is right here, so it's right at the end of Sumner Road, would be the entrance to the subdivision. And here is the full property. This is a little bit deceiving because the entire parcel is not at the moment proposed to be developed. This is about the dividing line, somewhere in here. And the property is zoned R43, excuse me, single family residential. And just so you know, this blue area represents the city limits of Peachtree City. So this is Fayette County here. There's a little strip of Peachtree City to the north, and then Fayette County. Just some requirements of the R43 zoning district. The minimum lot size is 1 acre. The minimum floor area required for a dwelling unit is 1,500 square feet. Setbacks are front 50, side setback 15, rear setback 30 feet. This is the overall plan. I will show enlargements of both sections. So the property is proposed to be divided into two sections, a northern section and a southern section. North, south, it's divided by the creek that runs through the property. The northern section is proposed to have 30 lots, and the southern section 29 lots, for a total of 59 lots. So let's see, the access from the northern section would be through, I believe this is Sims Road, through the Kedron subdivision, Kedron Hills, and then south from Sumner Road, down here. The only connection between the two sections is a golf cart path across the creek. So the requirements for a conceptual plat include things such as approximate location of property lines, approximate location of existing and proposed easements, approximate topography, approximate location and widths of streets. You notice how all this is approximate because, of course, we'll pin down all the details during the next phase of the platting process. Approximate location and size of the lots, multi-use paths and green belts and other areas to be landscaped. I did want to point out, here we'll go to so this is the northern section. These little boxes here are showing you that they can fit a footprint of 2,000 square feet on each of these lots, and that does meet the 1,500 square foot requirement. So let's see. They're required to provide open space, public space at a rate of 3 acres per 100 dwelling units. So in this case, for 59 lots, that total comes up to 1.77. They're providing 2.22.
Repeat that, please.
Per the land development ordinance, they're required to provide at least 3 acres of open space per 100 dwelling units. So that math calculates to 1.77 acres for the 59 lots, and they're providing 2.22 acres. And let's see, some of that area is down here near the entrance, and sorry, now I'm not finding the other one. Anyway, we can have the developer point those out to us. So as far as any special screening, the land development ordinance only requires special screening between commercial and multifamily subdivisions that abut single-family residential subdivisions. So they aren't required to have any specific buffers between this development and the surrounding single-family developments. They are providing this green belt right here between this subdivision and the street. That prevents these lots from being multiple frontage lots, because they would front their street and then the new street. There's also a buffer required along what we call major thoroughfares, and Sumner Road is a major thoroughfare, and its requirement is for a 25-foot wide city-owned green belt adjacent to the road. So that's what this strip right here is. Those are pretty much the basics of the proposed development. There have been some concerns by some internal staff, including fire and the police department, that relate to response times and being able to, because there's no connection between the two. I'll read this statement from the police department. I don't think we have a representative here, but the addition of roadway infrastructure and residential development in this area as proposed in the northern section of the Bradshaw development would further increase response times and expand the number of residents and locations potentially impacted by those delays. Their suggestion to mitigate these concerns is the inclusion of a connecting roadway between the northern and southern parcels with access to both Astoria Lane and Sumner Road. The fire department has expressed concerns similar to this. And of course, in addition, we have received several comments from adjacent parcel owners, which were included in your packet, and some additional ones sent to you today for you to review. Let's see. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, before we have the applicant come up, I just kind of want to go over the concept plat approval process, just for the commissioners are aware. So section 402 is the concept plat approval process. And just as we've heard, the city planner shall submit the results of the staff's review in writing to the planning commission for review. The workshop meeting, a formal staff recommendation, including conditions as appropriate, will be presented to the planning commission prior to being heard as a new agenda item, which we have. The workshop meeting, the planning commission shall review the concept plat and supporting documentation, consideration for the requirements of section 401, and I'll touch on that. Laura did touch on that, but I'll touch on it also. Of these regulations and the city planner's report, the planning commission and the city planner shall discuss the results of their review with the applicant and make recommendations for improvements, modifications, or changes. So section 401, without getting into everything, there's really, I think, two sections that really cover the residential, and Laura, please correct me if I'm wrong. The first item is industrial parcels, which that we don't have. But street right-of-way and payment shall be provided in accordance with city specifications. And number two, the city engineer may, with the approval of city council, propose additional requirements regarding design and construction of streets, curbs, gutters, multi-use paths, and sidewalks. I think the fourth item is, again, the permanent landscape screening from industrial to residential, which we don't have. So just wanted to kind of bring everyone up to speed as to what we're really taking a look at this evening. So
Could I didn't end with this, but so we don't typically make a recommendation, but staff has reviewed the plat with regards to the zoning ordinance and development standard requirements, and we have determined that they are meeting those, and we have no conditions to add at this time.
okay, thank you. Okay, so do we have the applicant or applicant representative? We do. If you'd please step forward and state your name and who you represent.
Good evening, Jason Walls with Highland Land Planning. I'm here with Chad Floyd with Chadwick Homes. Laura did a pretty good job. Just want to reiterate that we first turned this in about February of last year, so we've gone through about 11 months of review, discussion. Pretty much every staff member over there we've met with addressed as many concerns as we could from the public, and we think we have a pretty decent plat here. Just want to open up for discussion and answer any questions y'all have.
Great, thank you. So, commissioners, we're going to handle this very similar to what we typically do with the public hearing. I'd like to go ahead and get questions first of the applicant, staff, our city services. They're open also. So, Commissioner Hans, if you would, or Commissioner Gann, if you'd like to go ahead and start things off with questions first. Yes. If you don't have any, we'll come back to comments.
I do have several questions.
Okay, absolutely.
I had a chance to go out and look at the property, and walk the streets, and I've read the comments from the neighbors, and there's some really important comments there. But if you look at the way I saw the property, the topography of the property varies depending on where you are on the property. But generally, when you come in off of the main road, it seems like its topography goes downward toward Ashley Drive neighborhood, and so definitely there's some concerns that I read about potential drainage issues. In terms of erosion as well as buffers and so forth. I guess some questions that I have is, if you look at the lot sizes, and you've already addressed that issue, the lot sizes for this development are very similar to the developments that are adjacent to the existing property. Is that correct? The lot sizes in terms of 1 acre?
What was that? 1 acre minimum?
Yeah, so I'm saying that the lot sizes of this proposed development are similar to the developments that are adjacent to it, the existing developments.
Similar, yes.
Are they 1 acre or more?
I don't have that data.
Okay. In terms of the and this is an issue that I look at, is how it might affect property values. I know that the development shows that there's the minimum of 1,500 square feet, but as I walk these streets of the adjacent neighborhoods, these are very, very nice homes in these neighborhoods. And it looks like the square footage is probably range anywhere from more than 2,000 square feet up to 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. So I'm just wondering what the intent is of the developer in terms of the size of homes. I know it says that the minimum requirement is 1,500 square feet, but are the homes that are going to be built here, are they going to be similar to the quality that are in these other adjacent neighborhoods? So that's just a question I have from a value standpoint. And I'm assuming that the developer will have an erosion plan and a drainage plan that will address the issues that have been raised already. I do have a concern about the entrance in terms of double-fronted lots, and I don't know how that is addressed throughout the county or throughout the city. Is that a standard practice that we have to allow double-fronted lots, or is that specifically something that's against the ordinances?
What was that question?
Those 5 or 6 lots that are on Ashley that abut this proposed road that's going in there, those lots back up to the proposed road, so that makes them a double-fronted lots, right?
Are you talking about
Those right there.
these
Yeah,
lots?
yeah.
No, the road is over here. This is green space.
I understand that, but that's a buffer, but the road is still behind the lots, right?
They would only be double frontage if the road touched the property line.
Okay,
So it's in line.
okay. It depends on how you look at it, I guess, yeah. Okay. Is there, on the individual lots, when the homes are built on those lots, is there a percentage or a ratio in terms of what's required to be left in terms of landscaping or natural trees?
Say that again?
Is there a requirement when there's a individual lot where the home is built, is there a requirement to leave a certain percentage of natural landscape there?
There is not. The requirement for every residential lot in the city is to have 2 trees, minimum 2-inch caliber. So they
Okay.
can remove all the trees and put 2 trees back and meet the requirement.
Got it. And I guess the last question I have is I'd like to get some more feedback from the police and fire department about the response time as well as the traffic circulation.
If you would like to ask that, we do have
Okay.
our
I'd like to get more detail in terms of what you're thinking is there.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Clint Murphy. I'm the fire chief. We have tried our best to figure out what the response times would be there. Our main concern is, from our research, probably about 4 decades, there has been a road that was going to run called the Northeast Collector or the Northeast Bypass or some variation of that name. And we have relied on that going in at some point to connect us to the backside of Kedron Hills, just to have an easier response time into that. So that they're completely within their bounds from the fire code to split it in half the way they have. Our concern is just the actual response times, because our secondary engine, which comes from Peachtree Parkway, has to go all the way up to Kedron Hill and then all the way back already to Astoria, and now we're going to add think it's 30 homes on the north side of it. So, and then we're gonna have another subdivision on this is essentially two subdivisions if you think about it. Right? So that's our concern, is like the extent, adding to what is already a long response time. So we have somewhere between, I think GIS did it for us, and it was 7 minutes and 30 seconds drive time. We need to be there in 9 minutes, 20 seconds. So we have a 1.5 minute turnout time as a standard. So we're already there. So that's our concern with it, is we're just adding more time. And I would say the police department has the same problems. The connection, there's only one way in there and one way out already. So our hope was that once this road was built, we thought would be a collector road, that would solve one of our problems as far as access to it. So,
Good. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions while the chief is there? Yeah.
No, not for the chief.
Not for the chief.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Gantt, any
Let me
other
just-
questions?
Yeah, let me just go back to one of the questions I had and address that to the developer. Are you the builder as well?
Yes, sir.
You are. Are
I'm representing Chad.
yeah, in terms of the homes that are gonna be built in that area, are they gonna be similar to the homes that are already in that area?
I'm not too sure about that. I do know it's hard to give a minimum size, but we do know the price point's probably be 1.5 to 2 million and up.
Okay, thank
So
you.
they are going to be larger homes than the minimum size.
That's what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I have two questions for you.
Should I address these comments, the questions from Mr.
From-
Graham first?
from-
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely. I
Please.
apologize. Yes. Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Size, we just talked about drainage. I will say this, we did choose to move the road to the low side of the hill. Being former city engineer myself in Fayetteville, the drainage between lots is a big problem. This allows us to capture the drainage. That's why the road's on the downhill side. All the stormwater will be captured and piped. If the road was on the high side, you would have backyards. We gotta figure out how to pick up stormwater from these lots nowadays because of water quality treatment. So now we're gonna end up putting a diversion or a piping system down there along the back property lines of the lots at Astoria Lane. So this is the best way for us to capture stormwater and prevent future drainage problems. So we'll be taking the burden of Sedgwick or whoever's to our east, I guess, draining onto us. We'll have to prepare our lots appropriately to get that water to the road, pipe it to the ponds. So that was that intent. The entrance was, I guess, required to be opposite of that road, and we just came in to adjust it to get to the lots. That's based off of one of our, I guess the original design did not have it lined up with Sumner. But we have been asked to line it up with Sumner, so we did that. We do have green spaces on both sides of the entrance. Then I think the missing green space is where that dark spot is. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac. There's a lot that's no good for anything, so we're gonna try to make it a passive park or maybe a water quality pond. And when I say passive, we have no intent of having a pool house or anything like that for this number of lots. A lot of these type homes will have pools. We plan on having passive parks, meaning maybe plant some trees and some shrubs that invite birds and stuff. And you can have a bird sanctuary type area or a dog park, things like that. Percent green space per lot, I think is, we're gonna be very similar to everybody around us. If we had an aerial photo of the site, I don't know if it's possible for you to go to Google Earth or something, or Q Public, but once everything around us, that question came up, is same zoning, R43. Once it is built out, you can see Sedgwick and everything to the east of us. These trees grow in, it's not gonna be like a Towson Place where it's a quarter-acre, half-acre lots, masquerade the entire 80 acres and then build your houses. This is strictly, the roads are graded in at grade. So we're gonna come in, clear paths for the roads, for the utilities, for the stormwater, and then each house will clear the trees necessary for their, house layout and all that stuff. One thing we have changed since we maybe in the past month, is we've decided to be on public sewer. So that's gonna prevent the septic systems, which is additional clearing. You need to clear the primary and the secondary drain fields. We won't have that issue anymore because we're gonna offer public sewer. Police and fire, we have met with the fire chief and the fire marshal. I think we have that addressed. Our intent was to add So if we have phase one being south and phase two being north, phase three would be the rest of the property if that ever gets developed. And the intent was to build a crossing across the creek at that time. I'll be honest with you, when we were laying out this subdivision, we initially had a crossing. I was working on the Kelly Green gate closure at that time. We did that for Plantera. That stuck in our heads. It's the same deal. It would be lots of driveways off a road. We feel like it might be a very big impact to Kedron Hills to have a connection. People may be short-circuiting or going through, so we, just going off of what we did at Plantera Ridge, which was closing a road, knowing that out here, I think Crab Apple Lane's already been closed. It was our intent to think of safety from that standpoint. We have worked with them quite a bit on the timing and understand that. So that was our intent with breaking the subdivision into two. So I think that addresses all your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Allen,
Well,
questions?
yes, I have two. One, on the road, if you've discussed this with the city and the city still has concerns about response time, why not take that golf cart path and turn that into a crossing? I understand, having just left Plantera Ridge,
Yeah.
I understand the need to not, or the desire not to have through traffic. But if the fire department's concerned about being able to get to homes, I would think that that would win over too much traffic. So why not take that golf cart path and turn it into a road?
We could consider that. At our last discussion with them, we haven't had a chance to meet with the police chief yet, but last discussion with the chief and the fire marshal, it was once we exceeded 30 homes, which we're at 30 homes on both sides now. There are some IFC rules where if you have over 30 lots, you have to have two ways in, two ways out, and that was gonna trigger us making that connection. So we were proffering doing it in the third phase.
All right?
We could
Second-
certainly do it in the second phase or this phase.
Oh, I mean, I would
but-
recommend you did, that would be my thought, but my second question is, on Bradshaw South, the green space between the existing homes and the new homes that runs in between the backyard and the road, is that 50 foot wide? Am I reading that right?
Yes, sir, that is 50 feet.
And what do you intend to
undisturbed.
do with that?
Undisturbed, leave it as wooded. I think in the notes on our most recent revision, we added that we would add some woody vegetation to it. So what I see in sites like this is you have a lot of tall pines, a lot of tall, old hardwood growth down by the creeks mostly, but those don't provide this level of screening. So we would come back in with some level of woody vegetation. I don't want to say privet, but there's wax myrtles, things of that nature that are in the eye height to 20 feet tall range, and try to plant that area or supplement that area as needed to provide that visual barrier.
Okay, thank you.
Something else that's unrelated but would help with land disturbance is we do plan on using live bottom arch pipes. So we have two minor creeks that we cross. We'll use a live bottom pipe. We did that on Stagecoach Road, which approaches the new Booth Middle School. It's basically a half round of pipe that allows the creek to stay live and active. It doesn't disturb the creek. Fish, whatever, can make their way through. That has end walls and it's kind of like a little bit less land disturbance when we do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Commissioner Kriz?
Yeah, couple questions for the applicant, because you talked about phase one, phase two, and phase three. Does the owner of this parcel is developing the land own phase three already?
Mr. Bradshaw owns all 170 acres. It's our intent to develop the first 88 acres. Not 100% sure about the rest. He hasn't committed on that.
Why are we not seeing a plat for all three at once?
It's just not, I don't think the second half is under contract.
So you don't own it?
So you don't own
So
it? Yeah.
the seller of the land's lot is that actual house on, I don't know if you want to address this any, Chad, but the house that you can see on the far left, that's essentially his backyard. He's keeping his backyard.
So he's
Yes, that's his house.
planning to continue to live on that third phase.
He currently lives in
currently
that house and he
lives
has a barn in the middle of this site. He has some trails back there. I think he mostly uses it as his backyard kind of place for whatever. I think a lot of people go back there.
So he's planning on living there for his life.
Mhm.
Question for staff: knowing that Mr. Bradshaw wants to continue to live there, would there be any problem with the applicant bringing all three phases to us and platting it, and so that we can decide how it's all going to work now instead of piecemealing it together later?
Can I make a statement first? We've asked and he won't allow us From our standpoint.
He won't allow you to at least plat it?
I mean, that would restrict him.
Just, I would like to see what it's gonna look like as a whole.
I mean, we have a sketch of it. We just,
I
We have a
think
sketch
I think
just
it
so we
should be
could-
approved as a whole. That's
Okay.
my opinion. Because I don't like how this looks. I don't think it looks like the rest of Peachtree City around it. And I think that there's an opportunity to make the entire parcel look like the surrounding area. I don't think this achieves that. So I think that this is half baked. I'd like to see the whole parcel developed and brought to us as a complete plat, and then we can approve that. That would be my opinion. I'd
What-
like to hear the opinions of my fellow commissioners, but I think that there's a lot to consider here. You know, I know I'm speaking a little out of turn, but we're looking at not only the safety concerns for the fire and the police getting to that top neighborhood, but I think we're speculating on what's gonna be in that third phase, and I think that we should see it all at once.
Well, I believe there's positive intent, obviously, but it is kind of a penny now for a dollar later. We will do this when, as developers, 10 years, 15 years down the road, you could be gone, and the next developer comes in and does something completely different.
And unfortunately, what's been done can't be undone.
Right.
It can only be changed, possibly,
Yeah.
if possible.
I would prefer to see it all at once as the same.
Commissioner Kriz, any other questions?
No.
so we can show that, but not plat it, because we don't have the, you see what I'm saying? I guess we could show it, but not legally plat it as the
I
preliminary
appreciate
plat.
that. I think that, from my perspective, and I think from the community's perspective who lives in the area here, it would be nice to know what it's all going to look like.
I guess my question is more of a legal question. So we can show it all day long on the concept plat, but once we go to the preliminary plat and the engineering plans, it kind of becomes a little more formal. Are you suggesting that it just be on the concept plat and not necessarily the next
No.
6 phases of construction or
Well,
design and
I
construction?
think, because from what staff at least indicated me with their head movements previously, was that there's no problem with approving the 3 different phases, and, Mr. Bradshaw can continue to live there. And there can always be a process where you come back and make changes if needed. But I think I want to see what the whole thing is going to look like. And I think that it should be approved as a whole, because it's a large piece of land. It's one of the last large pieces of land we have here in Peachtree City. And I think it needs to look like the rest of Peachtree City in the area. I don't think this does it.
That's a good question.
Yes, Commissioner Allen.
Has Mr. Bradshaw provided you with any idea of when he would consider opening up phase 3?
After we develop phase 2.
Commissioner Halverson?
I'll restate what he just said. After everything is sold in phase 1 and phase 2.
Say it again.
After everything is sold in phase 1 and phase 2, then they'll develop phase 3
Phase
with the
three.
money from phase 1 and phase 2. Is that correct?
100%. Follow where you're going.
Okay. If we're gonna talk about personal opinions,
Well, do we have any questions first, and then we'll get to that? Yes.
questions.
Yes.
I have concerns or questions about some of the plats directly related to the 100-year floodplain on the size of the lot, 52 in particular. It doesn't seem like it works from the one that's wedged right in there on the south side of the circle.
Or the far right cul-de-sac?
Nope, on the middle
Middle
cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sac.
Right next to the cart path.
No, over.
Right next to the
Right
cart path
down.
proposed.
Down, left,
Down.
left, left.
Right there.
Right there. No,
Yeah,
That one.
no, yeah.
that-
Right there.
Right there. Yep.
And your concern is the size of the house or not? So
It's just a
elevation,
not usable lot. And also, the slope of it, the grading, it's wedged in there. But I guess in general, my question is, What concerns, or how did you, as you developed the plot, what were your concerns relative to mitigating the 100-year floodplain, other than
So,
the pad is going to be above the
yeah,
floodplain?
so the 100-year floodplain, if you can tell, is the green. And so, actually, I'm sorry, the green is the FEMA floodplain. The actual future conditions floodplain is the red hatch. So FEMA did their studies back in the 70s, or I guess they might have been supplemented.
Mhm.
The red hatch, if I'm not mistaken, is what we call the future conditions flood study that was done by the city 2008 or so. So that's more up-to-date study, so you can see it's way smaller. The topography goes high in elevation there. It's 100% contained within the 100-year undisturbed buffer, so there's no disturbing it. Further to our right, where the green gets kind of fat off our property, there's a lake. So we've already been told by engineering, and it's in the ordinances, that we have to do a sunny day breach analysis of the lake. We set minimum finished floors. They're gonna be, well down there. We won't have anything even close because of the elevations of these lots. So no, we're not really worried about the flood elevations. I understand you're concerned about the size and shape of the lot. And as we could shorten that cul-de-sac up 5 feet or something, or 10 feet, and maybe address that when we get into the engineering stage. It would look just like this. Well, again, this is a concept plat. We followed up preliminary plat and engineering plan, so we really haven't done that level of engineering yet. But I do want to reiterate that the future conditions floodplain is within the 100-year buffer, 100%, and we
Okay.
are well above it.
I
So the
appreciate
only
that.
concern would be the breach analysis if that dam was ever to flood. We're required by code to kind of have minimum finished floors significantly higher.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question. So you had said earlier that you didn't want to lay out phase 3 because it would be platted, and you were discussing language between a concept plat versus actually having it platted, correct? And you just stated this is a concept plat, correct? So you could theoretically do this for stage 3.
Oh, no, I have sketched it out. I sat down with the chief and fire
Okay.
marshal, and we looked at what a third connection would look like in phase 3.
As a
That-
concept, which is
Sure,
what's-
it adds
which
about
would be similar
20
to this
lots
one.
total to both sides.
Gotcha.
Total between the two sides.
Yeah, I would.
Very
I would,
similar 1 acre lots,
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Chris that it's difficult to evaluate an entire impact of a layout with only having half the information. Sure, we can say, yeah, that works for that, but we're concerned that the cascading effect of what we don't know is going to negatively affect not only the existing residents, but the future residents of what you're building in phase 1 and phase 2, right? The other question I have for you is that it may be more palatable to the neighborhoods surrounding it if you lessen the density. In other words, if you did 2 acre lots with a 4,000 square foot house, you'd have, and I'm just speculating on the fire commissioner's point of view, that you have less number of risks. So it's kind of risk management gets reduced because you have less objects to catch on fire.
Yeah.
And potentially you're creating a different typology that's more desirable. I don't know. I don't know the economics of it. I'm not a developer, but I can kind of speculate that your return on square footage, obviously, if you have higher density, it's better.
Well, obviously, there's no 2 acre lots around us. I would like to point out, talking about the planning of this is basically the next phase of all the stuff around us. So Mr. Bradshaw's family owned all the land around us. So the Smoke Rise land, the Smoke Rise Corners, which is new, Sedgwick in the county, I forget the other name of the subdivision to our east. All those were part of the Bradshaw land, and I went back and looked. The plats were done 10 lots at a time. I mean, they came piecemeal. There's 10 plats for Kedron Hills and Kedron Estates. So this is basically, and there's connectivity provided. Sims, there's Patina Point, I think. There's a location down there. So this is, I don't want to say the 20th version of this same thing, but it's just a continuation of what was done 20-something years ago. It's unfortunate that these lots weren't developed 20 years ago with that plan, but this is just 20 years later, continuing the same plan, making the same connections that were there.
I
But-
will say, this is very difficult property to
Oh,
lay
yeah,
out.
it is.
This
That's
is not,
possibly why it wasn't developed 20
Yeah,
something years
exactly.
ago.
this
Oh,
is extremely hard. So I don't want to kind of dismiss the fact that what you've done
yeah.
isn't really good run at it. All I'm suggesting is that I think it would help us up here understand a little bit better to make the best decision if we have more information. So I'm not saying, I could say lots of things, but I'm trying to be inclusive of the rest of my commissioners' opinions relative to help us understand so that we can help you.
And I did want to add something that I thought of. As we worked with the fire marshal, we are exceeding city requirements on the roads. So the road width required by the International Fire Code does not match the road width allowed in the city. So we're expanding our road by 1 or 2 feet in width. We're expanding our cul-de-sacs from 80 feet to 96 feet. And we're providing what I call an eyebrow, but it's a turnaround at certain intervals, so they don't have to go as far before they try to turn around if they pass the house. So we have worked with Fire Marshal Jenkins over there and kind of addressed as many concerns as we could. So this is different than other subdivisions in that sense.
Commissioner Halverson, any other questions? Commissioner Hamner, questions?
Right. Yeah, so I have some questions for the applicant. But first, just want to acknowledge, I know there's a lot of folks that are here. I'm assuming, we've seen a lot of concerns, a lot of emails. Somebody sent us a video of, some of the concerns that they have on this. Earlier, you mentioned that you had, tried to talk to some of these individuals. Can you just go into more detail in terms of the way that you've worked with the neighbors of the property that's being discussed and ways that maybe you could help alleviate some of the concerns that they have?
Well, 2 gentlemen here tonight came to our office, so we met with them, listened to their concerns, and after that meeting, we did shift it over. We've had a lot of phone calls ourselves, speaking to people one-on-one, so is Mr. Floyd there. And we received the comments, and we met with the city and looked at the comments, the same comments you guys have. As a matter of fact, the last one, I think, was new to me today, as I looked at it this morning, and I tried to address those, but most of those are engineering-based, sediment control, stuff like that, we're gonna obviously do when we get to, the engineering phase. So the only 2 to reach out to us, we met with, they came into the office and we sat down and looked at it. But we have been receiving text and comments from others, some in support, some telling us, asking us questions.
Understood. So you touched on something that I wanted to dig into a little bit more, the erosion component of this. Could you talk a little bit more about, again, there's concerns that this is going to cause erosion for some of the properties that are already there. What are you going to do in terms of that?
We'll prepare 3-phase erosion control plans, meeting the state and city requirements. There'll be sediment control. I think it's been pointed out that topography is kind of wonky here, so we're gonna have a lot of, sediment storage basins. We are surrounding 2, 1 large creek, I think, that's pretty big, so we'll have to protect that, double road type seal fence, stuff like that. So we just, again, we're at the concept stage. We'll get the necessary erosion control. The other thing is, with a 1-acre lot subdivision, again, we're only clearing the roadways, right? So we're not, every time you have a house built, there'll be individual erosion control plans for that house. So this will be a common development, tertiary permittees. Every house built will have to get a tertiary permit from the state, get those plans. I think you guys approved tertiary plans or not, I'm not sure. So the overall plans will mostly be for the roads and the ponds, and then each lot will have their own individual plan as they get built.
Understood. Has there been any other concerns that you've heard, that you've addressed, that you just want to help, again, clarify or just try and give these folks just some greater confidence as to what
We've
this is
heard
gonna
the
be
concern about the connectivity, both sides. No, we don't want the connection. We live in Kedron Hills, or yes, we do want the connection, mostly from fire services and police now, that want the connection. Have not dug too deep into that. What was the rest of the question?
I was just asking again if there was anything else that you've
We
heard.
shifted, so originally when they first submitted it, the road was about 10 to 15 feet off of the lots there. We shifted the road 50 feet over, now we have a 50-foot buffer there. We modified how we were doing the common spaces and moved them forward, stretched that out and stuff like that. So we have addressed that.
Understood.
Mm-hmm.
All right, those are my questions.
I just have a few questions, and this is probably both for you as well as the city engineer. And it goes back to is just what you talked about, you know, the road, number one, and the connectivity. There's a bunch of levers that can be pulled to change some things, but when you pull one lever down, another one goes up, and it creates another issue. And as Commissioner Halverson said, this is most of the properties we've had remaining in Peachtree City have been very difficult. And that's the reason why we've had them remaining in Peachtree City. You know, it comes up with a lot of creativity and you know, maybe thinking outside the box to fix a lot of the issues or try to fix a lot of the issues. But the question is, when the road, which is Road A, you know, concerns with some of the residents from Ashley Way of having the road, even with the 50-foot buffer. If the road was moved to abut Sedgwick, so on the property of Fayette County, what impact would that have, number one, to the way things go in there? Because you've said you've kind of kept it up on the hill. And you know, I'm thinking first and foremost about the residents of Peachtree City, and I apologize to any who are in unincorporated Fayette County, because there may be a time in the future where you may be residents of Peachtree City. But at this time, those properties are not, and I'm really focusing in on the residents. What would happen if that road was moved?
Well, like I said at the very beginning, if the road's on the high side, now we have to control stormwater for the lots. They're gonna not drain forward into the road because they're gonna be below the road, so we're gonna have to figure out a way to capture, I think, every lot and put either, they're gonna have individual water quality treatments on their lot, and we would try to divert the water, either pipe it or ditch it to the nearest pond. I think this would create, I don't know if they allow, I think you've had this situation once in Peachtree City where you've allowed water quality ponds on the individual lots. I'm not sure that's a good way to maintain them. Right now, we're gonna be able to put, as this is the design, we're gonna pipe all the water to the nearest pond and treat it there.
And this is not, you know, something that I'm saying, hey, this is what, but I'm looking at the hypothetical as to, you know, try to address, again, some of the concerns from those residents that are currently on Ashley Way as to what other impacts this may cause. For there's an understanding of that, that again, if you pull one lever, something else happens.
Right. My opinion, we see a lot of flooding complaints from neighbors, and so my attempt was to address that, to intercept that water with the road. I don't think that will happen in this case. I do believe there will be more trees cut down if we're having to collect the water in the backyards and attempt to pipe it or ditch it somewhere or provide individual detention ponds back there.
Okay.
I believe there will be more clarity.
Appreciate that. Second item, and I know, again, we've talked about the connectivity or lack of connectivity between the north and south phases. If taken into consideration very much so, you know, the recommendations and the concerns of our first responders, you know, the last thing in the back of my mind is someone not being able to get to a situation, you know, and because we weren't able to connect something, and that would be more tragic than 5 cars going through at one point in time, quite frankly. But is it possible to go ahead and, if we would look to, or the possibility to connect, to put a bridge over Flat Creek at that point to connect that cul-de-sac that's on the southern part to the end of the street that's on the northern part?
Can you go back to the overall? So if we were doing the road through there, we would prefer it to be where the golf cart.
Where the golf cart, okay.
Just to keep, just to make it a zigzag through the neighborhood for all the people that are just gonna
Got
short
it.
circuit.
And that's why I was asking that question, but
But looking at Plantera, it also had 2 or 3 zigzags, and it
Sure.
still was an issue. So that, anyways, that's why we're here. Ironically, a golf cart path in Peachtree City requires a 50-foot right-of-way, and so does a road. So that crossing there is actually 50 feet. So we could make that connection in phase 2 rather than phase 3. I guess if that's a requirement, we're trying not to have a Plantera Ridge situation.
right, and understand that completely. Again, this is going back to the concerns of our first responders, being able to address situations within the city, which, we already have, a need for additional services over in the west part of the city as it stands already. And the last thing we want to do is create another situation if we don't have to create a situation. So that was the question.
The developer wanted me to point out that we probably wouldn't put a bridge in there. We would probably pipe it. There is the option for the live bottom arch pipes there as well.
Okay.
The reason it would go there rather than straight up along the right-hand side is that you're too close to the neighbor's property. So whenever you cross a floodplain, you have to ensure you have a 0 rise. I don't even think you allow 0.01 or something like that. So to have no rise that close is nearly impossible. Wouldn't like it that close down.
Well, you would have to lose lots to be able to do that, of course. That's part of it, of taking it straight if you would. But understand. Question, and I appreciate it. Question to, I guess, the staff as well as city engineers. So, and if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. So, if we're looking over in the Flat Creek Golf Course area, we've had some major flooding, especially when we've had a hurricane or two decide to park themselves over top of us. Did the city at one point in time, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, did the city go in and purchase or buy a couple properties back in one of those developments at some point, or was it considered because of continuous flooding?
We have purchased property over the years in different areas of the city. North Fairfield comes to mind, and drawing a blank on some of the areas. But yes, we have purchased property because of flooding issues.
Okay, and that's what I thought. I couldn't remember. I think that was one of the areas, that we did at one point in time, but I couldn't remember. I wasn't aware of others, but one of the good things and bad things about Flat Creek is that it's only good for certain things. Of course, golf courses and green spaces and things such as that. And my concern is that are we creating another situation, especially with those lots that are signified in the FEMA floodplain, even though there's been another flood analysis done by the city. Are we creating a situation where we don't need to create one with those properties? I know one of the homes, I think on lot 53, if that is correct, it's going to be right up against the side setback almost to be able to put it in there, or very close, and that's just, again, the concept of what it shows. But I'm a little concerned with what I'm seeing from that, and I just wanted a kind of a confirmation from that standpoint. So thank you.
And just to add to that, there are requirements in the ordinance for a certain amount of area to be outside of the floodplain when you plat a lot. So.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, those are my questions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to any other questions before I move on to comments. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Commissioner Hamner. Comments.
Sure. Yeah. So let me just say this is a difficult property. To echo what some of the other commissioners said, it's very much in line with the property that's still available in Peachtree City. It's all everything that's not developed at this point is going to be incredibly difficult. I'm glad you guys picked up on that, and you guys asked some good questions on it. As you consider the way that you vote on this, though, just a couple of things to keep in mind is that, obviously this is zoned the way that it is. The plat overall is aligned with the way that the zoning is on, and obviously city staff as well also recommended that this overall meets a lot of the requirements on it. I will say this as well, is that, ideally, of course, it would be great to see the full thing platted out, but there is precedence in terms of having different phases of these things. It all sounds like as well, that the developers tried to, go above and beyond in terms of the way that some of this is set up on this. Now, I know not everybody in the public is happy about this and has concerns about it, and I think those are all incredibly valid. But I think overall that this would fit in terms of when we look at precedent, when we look at the ordinances that the city has, that would meet a lot of those.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Halverson, comments?
I want to reiterate that this is a difficult lot to lay out. I do understand that residents have a lot of concerns about it, which I have concerns as well, and I think that you can phase anything you want, but ultimately, I think it's important for us to see the entire intent and then phase from there, for us to give you the proper feedback. So I just still have concerns about the division, I have concerns about the floodplain, I have concerns about the density, but as you duly pointed, it does meet the requirements of Peachtree City. I just think it's challenged.
Can I make a comment about developing in phases? Just some of you that have been around here longer probably recall Crestwind, Everton. They were developed in phases, and we never saw the next phase until they were ready to do it. Everton has 9 phases. Crestwind, I think five or 6.
5.
Yeah.
But I think that makes a good point. You know, at some point in time, the developer or the property owner has to have a vision as to what this looks like. If I owned that amount of property and I was thinking about doing things, I have a vision as to what I think I'm going to do with this. You know, and it's unfortunate that maybe in those situations where it's, you know, a phase and then a phase and a phase, I'm actually going to bring it back to Smoke Rise. You know, you look at Smoke Rise and there's not just one Smoke Rise. There's how many different Smoke Rises? Because it was another phase and another phase and another phase. And for the most part, those phases are very complementary to each other, you know, which is good, but that didn't have to be the case. So I think if we can do that and see it all together, especially in a situation like this, where there's very much concern as to, you know, fire, police, EMS, when there's concern with, you know, water runoff and erosion, there's concern with, you know, like I said, just the general connectivity and things such as that. I think it's important, if it's possible to do it, even though it's may not be required. I think it would really help us all, and help the city to make the right decision as we get into the kind of the final plating, you know, or the next phase of the plating, to go ahead and really have that idea. So I kind of took away from Commissioner Kriz there because I have a couple other things, but Commissioner Kriz, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, I think to just to kind of go back to my previous comments. I mean, I think for me to see the greater idea, it doesn't need to be, you know, fully platted. Sure, I get it that things can be developed in phases, but to see the full idea, at least for me to give proper feedback, is important. You know, what I am concerned about is that, you know, basically we're talking, I think I heard 20, maybe 22 different 20 sets of 20 homes in the third phase, so 40 homes. We're talking about adding 100 homes, or is that
Oh, I'm sorry.
20 total?
13 and 7, 20 total.
Oh, 20 total. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're still talking about 80 homes that we're adding to the far northwest corner, northeast corner of our city. And when you look at some of the neighborhoods around this one, you see a lot more encouragement of multi-path use, for instance, right? And that's something that's in our comprehensive plan. And so for me not to see the rest of it and not to see where, you know, we're encouraging use of alternate transportation, which I think is important when we're looking at the bigger picture in our city, it's hard for me to give my full opinion and comment. So that's kind of where I am at, and why I'm asking for the whole design. I have concerns. I'll echo my fellow commissioners about the safety, about getting police and fire back into that north development there. I do appreciate the applicant taking into account the water concerns of these lots and the placement of the road. I think that's fantastic. Major kudos to working with the community to figure out what works best from a transportation and water diversion standpoint. But you know, from my standpoint, I think I really would like to see the whole plat. I don't know if we're voting today or if we're just,
No.
so this is just continue to talk about this. I'd like to see more of an encouragement of using the alternate modes of transportation, because adding 80 homes to this area, I think it's going to be beneficial for them to be well connected, not only in terms of the roads that they have access to, but also the multi-path use system.
So this will be a good time. I'm sorry, I did forget to bring this up. When we bring it to you for voting, there is a condition that the city engineers have put on the property. They are requiring the developer to construct a multi-use path along Sumner Road. The original comment was on the western side, but there has been some discussion to put it down the eastern side, but they are going to be required, and we'll make that an approval condition when we bring it back to you to vote, to make a connection further south
Where would
on
that be on
Sumner
the
Road.
map?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think I have anything that shows it.
Okay.
Let's see. Shows it a little bit more, but it would, come down Sumner Road, and down towards the end, there's another connection.
Mhm. That'd be nice, because right now that's just surface street for any golf cart traffic that comes down.
Can I add to that? What's really weird,
Absolutely.
for some reason, Sumner Road, as it heads south to the highway, only has a 30-foot right-of-way. There is a 50-foot green space that I think, per the ordinances, usually are for cart paths. So the intent is to take the cart path about 1,000 feet south to where it crosses, I don't know what road that is, but it crosses Sumner below the entrance to Smoke Rise Corners. And so we would connect it to there. And then obviously it's connected via road networks to the backside of Kedron.
And a question, I guess, on connectivity too and everything. Where is, and a question to staff, the mixed use development that's going in off of 54? I'm trying to pinpoint it, of course, and we don't have a map of the whole area up.
I think it's that red LUC.
Is that where we're looking at?
I think that's the red LUC.
Yeah,
Is that the red LUC?
Yeah, we're also doing that one. There is connectivity between Smoke Rise Corners and the red. So just getting into Smoke Rise Corners gets carts from there.
Right.
And that's supposed to be restaurant heavy, so it would, everybody from those subdivisions would be able to come
Fine.
via the cart.
Perfect.
path and build,
That's
and
what I
to
was.
get to those commercial lots. That connection's already been made through Smoke Rise Corner to that
Yeah.
commercial lot.
Yep.
So we're making the connection from the residential area to
That's what I
that.
was looking at.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
They're trying to pull it up on Google Maps now,
Okay.
so that it's easier to understand.
It's just another thing as we kind of go through, looking at that. It's just as, kind of requesting the entire area to be, from the conceptual plat side. It's also nice to see
It's right there.
where everything kind of ties into each one of these separate developments, whether residential or commercial, so we have a pretty good idea of how things look.
Okay,
There's my dot. So,
we're gonna build a
so
path.
here's, you can see the existing cart path
Mhm.
that crosses Sumner right there. That's the goal. We're trying to get them via a cart path from the new development down Sumner, either on the left or right, or in the middle, or overhead, or monorail, or something down to that crossing
Got it.
there.
Okay, perfect.
That's the goal.
Okay,
That's
good.
the condition that we wanted.
Okay, that would be excellent. That'd be really good for the community. Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Chris, any other?
No, I'm
Comments?
just excited to see the entire plat, and I think I'd love to see some more connections to the cart path, or connections to the existing cart path in Smoke Rise. Just because I think when you see the entirety of the plat and how it could potentially encourage alternate vehicle use, I think for those 80 homes, that's really going to impact, how they live in Peachtree City. So that's what I'm excited to see. But thanks for bringing it forward.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Allen, comments?
Yeah, can we go back to Bradshaw South? So, one, as a former police officer, I'm always concerned about response time and would love to see a road placed. I was looking for the black and white version. See the response times reduced for fire and police. And then I just like the concept of slamming home neighborhoods and buildings and malls and every last green space that a city has. Orlando used to be a beautiful city, and now you can't find any trees. One thing that Crestwind did a great job in, if you look at, I guess, either one, Bradshaw South or North, where you have, we'll use 48, 47, 49, 46, that area right there, where the homes come back to each other. Crestwind did a great job putting buffers in there so that you couldn't see the home behind you. There weren't any chances to look into windows. And it just feels like these are, if the saturation of homes in this area is pretty dense, I would have liked to have seen fewer lots, or at least a buffer in between the yards so they're not looking at each other's back windows. Please.
I would just point out that these are 1 acre lots, those are quarter acre lots, so there's 4 times the amount of land per lot than over there. And then if we had the aerial photo pointed up, I would just looking at what's existing around us, that's how this is gonna look.
Okay.
It won't look that way on day one because we're clearing the roads, but you can see on the aerial photo from Google Earth, those trees are crowded over. If you go through the history of Google Earth, you can go back to like 1993, even 99, you can see it start to get built. And yeah, you can see some clearing for the roads and all that stuff, but then within eight years, it crowds up and it's over and it's just like it is today.
Okay.
And so we're intending to continue that same thing on with this.
And thank you for your willingness to answer the questions. Really appreciate it.
Commissioner Allen, anything else?
No.
Commissioner Gant?
I would just say thank you for answering the questions and the comments that you've made today. You set my mind at ease that your development will be on par or better than the developments that are adjacent to it, so thank you for that. Also, I have a better understanding of the work that you're doing to mitigate the concerns that the neighbors have. I know there's probably still some work to be done, and I'm concerned about that. But overall, I think what you've done fits in very nicely, and appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, and I echo the same. If the solutions to the issues and the questions were simple, this would have been developed probably ages ago. And as we talked about, there are no simple properties really left in Peachtree City to develop. Yeah. So. Yep. I do thank you for trying to take into consideration the feedback that you received from the original, in making the changes and trying to make some changes to this new version of the conceptual plat. I think, as you heard, there's still some concerns as from the residents, as well as the commissioners, as well as our first responders. I still have some concerns myself. Again, as the other commissioners said, with connectivity. But if we connect to go ahead and take care of possibly a response time, does that connectivity now open it up for pass-through? That's very possible. And what is the most important thing out of that, I think, is something we need to take into consideration. Again, one of the questions was, those lots that are in that 100-year floodplain, and what situations the city has faced in the past where, we've fast approached that, if not exceeded in certain areas of the city. And are we creating an issue that we don't need to create by possibly reducing lot size so a house could be better situated away from that, or being creative with some of those? There may not be a perfect solution again for that, but I think it's definitely something to keep in mind. Appreciate all the work that you did with the streets and making it easier width-wise, as well as, like you said, some of the eyebrows that I did notice in there for turnarounds and things such as that. That's very important for not only just our fire and fire department, police, but also services that come through, whether it's trash or anything else as we have coming through the city. Still have some concerns as to connecting the two, as well as what that would look like with that phase 3. It's very possible that some of the concerns and the questions that were brought up might be answered, or at least alleviated by seeing that third phase. then again, that third phase may bring up other questions and concerns. But I think until we see that, I think it'd be very difficult. Again, we're not taking a vote on this, but a very difficult proposition if this would come back to the Planning Commission as is, without maybe some of those thoughts being at least fleshed out and incorporated. It may be a very difficult discussion, even further to have than just the good discussion we've had this evening. So,
Can I add one more comment?
absolutely.
I'm sorry to go back to this, and I just thought of an idea. It's my understanding that there's a possibility that in the Crestwood neighborhood, they're gonna create a back entrance for first responders that's gated, that nobody else can use. And they'll have some sort of gate mechanism to open it when they come through. No through traffic. If we did something similar, that might handle the concerns the neighbors have of through traffic and handle the concerns of first responders. You build the road, then put a gate in it that only first responders have access to. That might make both sides happy. Just a thought.
That's interesting proposition, yeah. David, you have I didn't know if you had a comment on that.
I was just commenting that, yes, that a gate is possible.
Okay. That's something to consider with that. So it'd still allow, you'd still have to build something over top of Flat Creek but you would have to put a gate at that point.
Wouldn't have the through traffic.
Prevents through
But
traffic.
you wouldn't have the through traffic problem, but we would be able to hopefully alleviate some of the possible concerns from fire and EMS and the police. So, no, thank you.
Genius.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Oh, just,
Laura?
I want to state for the record that the surrounding properties are also the same zoning, R43.
Mhm.
That they came out much earlier, and I think Mr. Walls even mentioned it at some point, but I just want to make sure we told you that. And I think you need to make, I know you've talked about your concerns, and if that's what you want them to go on to make possible changes, of course, next time they come back, they're going to want you to consider approval.
Mhm.
So make sure they know, what you're hoping to see when they come back.
I guess she's asking to make it clear what you're asking.
Yeah.
I think you've made comments, but I don't think it's been as a direct.
Okay, so let's go ahead and put those together and get it over to staff. So number one is concerns about the fire and EMS and police, and that is more from a response. So that would be a possibility of looking at then connectivity, definitely. Number one. Number two is seeing the phase 3 conceptual, which again may take care of item 1, or it may add to item 1 of the connectivity. Cart path, correct. Density, I think from Commissioner Halverson, looking at, is there any way to possibly reduce density to take care of some of these other situations? I'm missing something. What am I missing?
Clear layout of the water management.
Yeah, clear layout of water management. Is that,
A more clear layout of the water. I mean, you've done a really nice job of explaining it, to be honest. The stormwater, I guess, yeah.
Just a statement on that, if you really studied it, there's probably like 8 or 9 different ponds. That's because it's draining in different directions, and so we're having to capture it in multiple directions. So there was some thought put into where those blue ponds are kind of currently shown. It's kind of hard to see up there.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of, well, even
Yeah,
in,
it's very hard to see when y'all get these emailed to you, but
yeah, even in the conceptual plat, it's a little difficult to see some of them.
Maybe a better diagram to go along with the next.
I'll probably add some color to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would help. Yeah, absolutely. And, as part of that connectivity, of course, what Commissioner Allen brought up with the possible gate just for first respond. Commissioner Gant?
I think the only other issue that I can think of is a little more specificity about the buffer that he was gonna put along that road backing up.
So along the road A,
Yeah.
that 50 foot that seems to taper off and then kind of grows there, yeah.
Yeah.
and that's behind the homes on Ashley Way.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of
Commissioner,
something.
yes?
Have you guys done a traffic study for how many cars are gonna dump onto Sumner Way?
Sumner Road?
Yeah, down to the south.
I mean, typically it's, I think. I
Two,
forget the
three
number,
cars per
two-
house times
Yeah, I
30.
think it's 2 to 3 trips per day, so meaning a trip in and a trip out. So it'd be 6 or so trips a day. But I don't know if this exceeds the requirements for a traffic study or not. I don't think it does. It's pretty
Okay,
low
I was just
for a lot.
curious if you did.
Yeah.
If you have the information, you can just share it with us.
I can definitely add that to the plan. So there's just IT manual has trips per day per lot. It's different for the size lot, so we can provide what the new
Right.
traffic impacts would be.
Great.
But it should be minimal. It's very similar to everything around us in this area. It's not
It's not gonna be disruptive
McDuff
to what you
Parkway.
currently
Yeah,
have.
these aren't quarter acre,
It's
half
going
acre
two different
lots.
directions.
And I guess one other thing, I guess a question to city engineering. With that mixed-use development going in, and I'm trying to remember, I believe there is going to be is there going to be one stoplight that's going to be in front of that mixed-use development on 54, or is it just going to be, I can't remember what it's called. It's just going to be left, right-hand turns going in, and you'll have to come out one direction or the other?
If I recall, it was just a right in, right out.
Just right in, right out? Okay, I couldn't remember if there was going to be a,
Okay.
It's gonna be a modified R cut.
or
So-
modified?
Okay.
They're not gonna restrict, this is permitted through GDOT, they're not gonna restrict what's coming out of whatever that road is across from us,
Mhm.
Genevieve Court maybe, but they're gonna restrict our left outs.
Okay.
So we'll only be able to go left in and right out or
Right,
something along
okay.
those lines.
And the other reason I'm
I think.
kind of wondering is now we have, 88 homes with X number of trips, and that section of Sumner that goes out to 54, which of course Sumner's an odd one because it's kind of two parts of Sumner. That's going to go out, and that can only basically, you can only go right out of there. Is that correct, or can you come across and make a left as you're heading towards Fayetteville on 54 East?
You can go both directions.
Or can you go, okay, I appreciate it. I've gone past there so many times that I don't pay attention to it, so I do appreciate that. It's just one more area where, we're gonna have traffic and not even looking at the city streets, but looking at the major thoroughfare of that traffic coming in onto 54 right before or right after sort of thing, that mixed-use development. So it's something, as, again, looking at the big picture, we always look at, don't always, but we focus in on that development at the time and don't always think about, well, what's next and what's next and what's next.
It
So-
can be a tough turn there.
Appreciate it, thank you. Okay,
One last thing for me,
Yep.
for phase 3, I'm particularly interested in how you're going to connect to the cart path that runs along the very top of Lake Kedron, where Flat Creek comes out to the north and east. If there's a plan to connect into that cart path, because I think that's gonna serve that area significantly, if that makes sense. So if you see how Flat Creek comes out of Lake Kedron, at the very top and north and east, there's two cart paths on either side of Lake Kedron that come down and around from there. And I think that's gonna be, at least from my perspective, significant in the usability of carts and of alternate transportation from that area.
are you
Something
talking about
staff can
Peachtree
provide us those
Parkway?
locations?
No, I'm not talking about, so, this little corner, I can circle
Yeah.
it on the screen there. That
I
little
gotcha.
corner, there's a couple of paths that go up to Smoke Res
Yeah.
Trace there, and I'm interested to see how phase 3 will connect in to those paths.
Understood.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure, based on the creeks and the topography, that we're even developing that area. That kind of fingers down. It's kind of
difficult.
separated over there. It's not
Okay.
enough land that's out of the floodplain and upland or some. So there will be a green space with not lot 3, phase 3.
Phase 3.
And we have it laid out, so I'm gonna be able to get it to you within a day or
Okay.
two.
Yeah.
If you took a pencil sketch, we can get it to you tomorrow, but,
Okay.
Appreciate it, thank you. Okay. So I think those are our items. Any other items from the commissioners? No, okay. Well, again, want to thank everyone, want to thank staff, and city engineering and our fire department for coming out. Thank you for your input. Really appreciate that. Staff for putting this together, and from the applicant. And want to also thank the comments that we received from the residents. Hopefully all that will be taken into consideration as they go through and provide possibly some updates as to what we'll see for the final that will come in front of us for a vote then. So, okay. So that's everything for the workshop. Laura, I think you have one more slide for the next meeting. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, next meeting, February 9th. Any other comments, questions from commissioners? Okay. Anything else from staff? No, perfect. So we have a motion to adjourn.
So do.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.